And welcome to another episode of Book-Based Business Incubator. And today we're going to be talking to author Jim Sagar. I've known Jim for several years as actually one of his publishers for his many books. And he's going to give us a perspective on publishing from the point of view that he has successfully published 5 books and on the way to publishing many more. And he's one of the people who likes to write, but uses different publishers. He does not want to do this publishing himself. And I can respect that because there's a lot of pressure on authors to do self-publishing. Maybe that's not in the cards for you. Maybe you just want to do your writing and let somebody else handle the publishing part of the business. Well, you'll find what Jim has to say very interesting about how to find that right publisher. And there are plenty to choose from out there, so I don't want to give it away. Jim graduated from the University of Cincinnati, and he was in a fraternity called Delta Tau Delta. And additionally, he served in the Navy for 4 years. So thank you for your service, Jim. He's backpacked across Asia. He's climbed Mount Fuji. He ran the first marathon a few years ago. And he's also an operations manager in the aviation industry. And with all that going on, he still had time to write books. And so we're going to discuss, how do you write books for maybe a side business or part of your full-time job while not having time to write books? And so Jim will help us clarify all of that. So without any further ado, let's welcome Jim. All right. So yeah, Jim, it's good to be back with you. I know we've done some podcasts before. I put a beach scene on as part of the second day of spring.
Sure. Good logic. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody, they said the year is flying. I said, I know. I'll be buying Christmas presents pretty soon. And they said, well, not that soon, I hope. I said, I know, I need to get through some summer weather first.
Right. That's where you are right now, down there in Miami Beach, right? Coral Gables, right? Very nice. Very nice.
That's what it's looked like. I have this up on YouTube for those of you who don't know, and I chose a virtual screen of a beach scene. And I don't have a green screen, so it's like two worlds blending in, my living room and the beach scene. So you'll see a little bit of everything if you're following on the YouTube channel. So again, welcome back to Book-Based Business Incubator. And for those of you who have been with us for a while, those few of you, we are looking at using a book to build a business brand. And some of the things that we've learned is we can market and we don't have to use traditional marketing methods, and we can publish and we don't have to use traditional publishing methods.
Correct.
And having said that, you also should be very cautious of how you spend your money. And as an example, I used to model my publishing business as if I were a traditional publisher. That did not work out very well for me. And so I've learned lessons. And so now I know that Red Bike Publishing is not a traditional publisher. And so I have freedom to be creative and not have to live my life like I'm trying to compete with those Goliaths. And and so many things I notice about you, Jim, is you're an author first and foremost, and then you move on to the next project. And I'd like our readers to understand how to write a book. Maybe they're focused on a business, maybe they're focused on book writing, but a lot of times people have not finally put their book into print and published it. And so we wanted to pick your brains today and see, hey, what motivates you? And I have specific questions onto your methodology, because there's many ways to do things. I think today we're being bombarded with a lot of ads, education, and training on how to become your own publisher. And that's not for everybody. So, sure. So I'd like to hear from your point of view why you don't publish your own books, like why you like to publish with other people. And you've had different publishers. I applaud you going around and trying different things. And so we want to pick the mind of an author of multiple books with multiple publishing options, and why you choose to let other people publish your books instead of publishing your own, and why that fits your lifestyle better.
Well, first off, thanks a lot for having me on today, Jeff. You and I have a great connection. You and I have published numerous books. Matter of fact, we have another one coming out here soon, as we think. And then we have a few ideas for down the road in the near future on other projects that you and I have talked about. The biggest thing about writing a book is, how do you get started writing a book? Well, first of all, you will have had to have done something amazing to put on paper, or you will have come up with something amazing and you will have to put that down on paper. The biggest thing about writing a book is the big S word is start. Most people sit here and they think and they think, and then they ask somebody for permission, or they ask somebody about this, or what do you think about that? Or should I get started in the fall? Should I get started in the summer? Should I wait for my kids to grow up? Should I be a grandma or a grandpa first? You know, should I get my master's degree before I go? Or I only got a C in English. What makes me think that I could write a book? Well, throw all those stereotypes out and throw all that misinformation and the doubters and the naysayers out of your mind. And you just sit down and you take the time, about 15 minutes. If you plan out 15 minutes a day just to start the book, well, that equates to 96 hours that you could write in a year. And the way I start writing is I pick a time block first thing in the morning. Usually it's about 5 a.m. The book that I wrote with you about the butcher Bob, I wrote that between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. because I had to be at the airport at 5. So I didn't like writing after work because I was tired, and I didn't like writing at work. Of course, you're at work, you can't do that. So
Right.
if you want to find the time, you make a time slot and you stick to that time slot. And when you get started writing, you come up with kind of an outline, just a very simple outline, nothing major. It doesn't have to be double checked, rechecked, quadruple checked for clarity. It just has to make sense to you. And then once you start putting it on paper, you don't edit while you're writing. That's the biggest key, is most people want to edit while they're typing, but your muses are flowing. Everything is flowing. Everything's going from your head to the computer or the head to the paper. And if you want to stop and make sure you double check that word, or you don't have the sentence fragment, or you forgot the comma, well, your train of thought is going to be broken, and then broken again and broken again. And then before you know it, you're going to say, I'm not that good. Well, behind every writer, as you know, is an editor. And they take your project and they make it better. That's just the way it is. Unless, unfortunately, you're the best editor in the world and you can do it all yourself. But most authors go to an editor. And so what I have come to play is first I type it out on a computer, I get it all done, but I do not edit at all. Then what I do is I go out and print it, and then I edit it as I read it through the first one. Then when I plug all those in, I'll sit on it for a few days, and then I'll read it again. Well, then I'll sit on it maybe another 2 weeks to make sure all the information double checks. And then I'll give it to somebody else for the first comb through or walk through, or somebody that can heighten it a little bit better. Just because I can explain it in my head doesn't mean the reader's going to understand it from my logic or my way of thinking. So you have to get some people in there to do their little fine finesses. And that's why how I write is I don't like autocorrect. I don't like all the lines going through like a line edit before you've even started. You're just going to get all tangled up and confused. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because you hit on a lot of good topics. So let's go back to, and I like what you said about writing. I've got novels that have taken me 10 years to write. I've got books that I've written and rewritten over a period of 5 to 7 years. I'm not in a hurry. It sounds like you're not either. With a full-time job and part-time writing, you have to give yourself a break. Have you always felt that way, or do you think it might be maturity related, or have you ever felt a time where I remember when I always felt like I had to get things done now. I'm much happier when I can make things, like you said, write 15 minutes, you get some endurance and you're able to write 30 minutes next. And maybe you get an endurance to write an hour, but I feel like people should give themselves a break and should not put a lot of pressure on themselves. If to put it down and set it aside, like you said, and think of something else.
I think pressure comes from within. Everybody creates their own pressure. The next thing is outside pressure. What I like to do as an author is I don't tell anybody that I'm working on a project at all, other than my wife. She is the only one that knows. I don't tell my father, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my uncle, my neighbors, my cousins, unless it's on a particular book that requires their input. But for the past 5 that I've written, I've never told anybody that I was writing a book. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I didn't hear the pressure. I didn't feel, is it done yet? How's it going? What else do you need? What's the cover design? I didn't feel any outside pressure. And that's one good advice that I could give writers is you don't have to tell everybody you're writing a book. I hate to say it, but sometimes if it's a month or 2 months out, people are going to say, are you done yet? Yeah. And you're going to say, well, I'm not. And then 2 months later, they're going to say, are you done yet? And you're going to say, no, I'm not. Yeah. And that creates stress within stress.
Yeah, so I always recommend getting buy-in from the close people around you. And it sounds like you've got buy-in when it's time to write. You can get up early to write. Your family understands it. Or you mentioned you don't mix work with writing, which is a great policy. You don't want to be fired.
No, you don't want to be fired. No, you do not want to be fired. No, that wouldn't go over very well.
Yeah, you're not ready to write full-time yet, right?
Right. I can imagine the stress that would create to tell your spouse, hey, my book's done, but I lost my full-time job.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
The fun. Yeah. But you just have to prioritize. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, that's fine. So I was going to segue to the next part. So you went right into writing, and you said you have to either be fantastic at something or able to teach something or have a great idea. Your topics, I like your topics. But sometimes they're very niche oriented. Riding a bike and relating that to customer service, knowing a butcher and relating that to customer service, hearing a good story and turning that into your next project, which I'd like you to talk about in a little bit, is a tale of 2 college graduates that land the interview. Again, very niche-y, something that you know about, but aren't recognized as an expert in it. And you're able to put that knowledge together in a book and share it with the public. Where do you get these ideas? How do they come up?
Everybody has stories to share. Every single person in the United States and in the world has a story to share, whether it be about them or about somebody else they know. And this particular case, the book that you're referring to is Amy and Jeff. It's a parable between 2 college graduates who landed the same interview for the final round. Well, this was a true story that was shared with me for a young man that I hired out of Indianapolis for Home City Ice that I worked with for nearly 20 years. He told me that the reason why he was hired, of course, you're going to have to buy the book to hear it why, but it came down to a very, very simple word or phrase that he used in his final interview. Most college graduates across the United States, if you have a sports marketing degree and you're applying for the Philadelphia Phillies, well, guess what? That sports marketing degree from the West Coast, Midwest, the Deep South are all trying to find that job with the Philadelphia Phillies. It's not just you. You're competing against another, probably say 900 people that are applying for that mid to entry level position with a baseball team. It's the same thing with the communication degree. It's the same thing. You have an internship, you have your college diploma, you participated in your local community. Well, guess what? Another 1 million college students have done the same thing. So when you're going in for the interview, how is somebody of a Fortune 500 company going to separate one from another and then weed out the other 400? It's very simple. Resume, they didn't have the background. I mean, everybody knows that stuff. But this book is about, you're now competing one-on-one with somebody else, and you better have raise the bar so high because your character is on display 24 hours, 7 days a week. I tell my daughter, watch what you do on the internet because 20 years from now it can be used, in your favor or against you, one or the other. So this Amy and Jeff book is about a male and a female competing against for the first job, major job after earning their college degree. And how did they land the job? Well, this is what it is. It's a parable. So a young man told me this story. I hired him. I watched him grow for 3 years. And then he applied for a Fortune 500 company. And he thought he got hired because of all his background. And the regional manager, after 6 months, told him the reason why he was hired. And he was blown away. He's like, what? That's it? That's the only reason? And so I had to write a book on that because we all think that we have the best backgrounds, the most popular resume, the best references, which we all do. And we should be very proud of those. But what the problem is we are competing with other young men and young women for that same job, whether it be a lawyer, a police officer, a fireman, a nurse. We're competing against everybody when we're coming out of college. So I had to write this story because it's been in my brain for years, and I thought it was too good of a story not to share with college graduates because here we are, almost college graduation season. And so I put it together. It took me 5 days to write and complete the whole book. It took another 2 weeks to edit it, line edit, copy edit it, and then another 10 days for Red Bike Publishing to jump on board, for you guys to do your piece of the puzzle and then come back to me. I mean, it's a long waiting period, as you know, but it's well worth the wait. It really is. I mean, it's very powerful and fun to hold a book that you have written, and it's just neat. It feels very cool. It feels awesome. And
so you're very visionary, and I appreciate working with you. You challenge me a lot as a publisher because you're very visionary. You know what you want your book to look like, what format it wants to be in. And I'm hoping that the people who are listening are taking notes in that, we may have some consultants listening. We may have owners of business listening saying, hey, how can I use a book idea, not necessarily to sell a lot of books, but to let people know about my business. Like you are letting people know, hey, if you're going to, for example, if you were a career consultant, you'd say, hey, I got this great book to help people get their next job. Or maybe there's somebody, a consultant here on security or a consultant here on something. What would you recommend to them? Because you've tried different types of publishing.
Well, the angle that I always think about this from somebody out there that's thinking about it from a business angle is, here's my business card. Okay. Everybody has a business card. All right. So who cares really? I mean, it's nice that you have a business card, but that's nice. Now, if you say, here's my book and here's my business card, and you're a dentist, let's say, and you write down some facts about being a dentist or your business practice as a dentist or whatever. Well, guess what? Here's this, and now you have 2 for 1. Now you're separating yourself. You're becoming somebody of authority in that niche business. Let's say a dentist. A dentist book would be a very niche, narrow-minded book. It really would be. But guess what? You're separating yourself by not just handing a card out, you're handing your book out. And that could be a Christmas gift. It could be a welcome gift, whatever you want to new patrons. Welcome Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and you give the book out to the mom and the dad, and then they read the book and they feel good about themselves. Another good one is, if you own a wine vineyard and you say, hey, here's my business call, give me a call. Well, they already have something to hand out. They already have a bottle of wine to hand out. I mean, that is really cool. So now you have a business card and a bottle of wine. Well, what else can you top a bottle of wine with? Well, here's a good reading material on my vineyard and my practice and my family history. Well, guess what? Now you have 2 tangible things besides your business card to help promote your business. I mean, that in itself is a humongous separator. I mean, you're becoming authoritarian, almost like, hey, I'm an expert in this and I can do this and I'm going to separate myself from the others. I mean, you take a simple book, a leadership expert or a motivational speaker, maybe in your local community, once again, just a business card. But once he writes his leadership book, wham, he's starting to separate himself. I am somebody of an expert. I'm not saying I'm the best of the best, but I'm putting it on paper. And here's my book. Here's my business card. I'd be happy to represent you at the bicycle shop, at the dentist office. Here's a really funny book. It's on tea. It's just promoting tea, and it's done by a little tiny little inn over in northern Kentucky. But this is their book. So they talk about all the tea that they can serve and the recipes that they can have at this little tiny little inn in northern Kentucky. Well, that's great. That's better than just a business card. So as a Christmas gift, giveaways, contests, what have you, you're now promoting your niche business into something bigger and better. How many real estate agents are out there? Millions of them, millions. I mean, you could tell story after story after story and put that all into a book form on how you were able to lock it in. The interest rates were up, but this is what I did. There's so many ways you can use a book to promote your business. It's unreal.
Yeah. So good job. You talked about how to write a book, how to focus your book on your business and use that to expand your business. Also like to recommend, if you're not comfortable with writing, I like to do like we're doing now, is I like to turn on Zoom or a recorder and just talk my story and then have it transcribed into writing.
Perfect.
Yep. And other ways you can hire a ghostwriter to get that done for you as well. And then, so, okay, you're not one who wants to handle the business of book publishing yourself. You don't want to go on Amazon at this moment and set up an account and publish the book. What can you tell our audience? How do you shop for a publisher? I remember back in the day, our only choice, and I'll show you binders full of rejection letters. And don't let rejection letters get you down, because we are selling books even though other publishers have rejected them. So there's a workaround the rejection letters. And Jim has found one. How do you shop your publishers?
Well, I think everybody deserves a good rejection letter. I have them because you don't stop. You keep going because your story is of value. And you're just so determined to get that in a book form that nothing's going to stop you. I mean, if there's a will, there's a way. So I always congratulate people on a rejection letter. That means you're trying. That means you're going. There's so many people out there that they don't have a rejection letter because they're afraid to submit it to be rejected. And I tell everybody out there, just submit it. If it gets rejected, follow what they say and then kind of rearrange your book. Or if you like what they say, they just say no, move on to the next one. But I think each individual is different. If you're an Army background, try to find some veteran authors or some authors, publishers that are in the Army side or the Department of Defense side or security side, something that flows with that book. The bicycle book, that's how I found Red Bike Publishing, is I typed in bicycle publishing companies, and sure enough, there was Red Bike Publishing. And so I did the research and I was like, well, this is going to be a long shot. Let's just see what happens. So I typed it up and I submitted it to you. And then through you combing it through, we said, yes, we've signed an agreement, and boom, we've had 2 done already and a 3rd one out here soon and more in the future. So you have to find out what the book is about. If it's about gardening, you have to go the gardening route. That's a very niche book on how to grow hybrid trees. I mean, there isn't too many people looking to grow hybrid trees, but there are people looking to grow hybrid trees. So therefore, you got to find exactly pinpoint and type in keywords of your book. Hybrid trees publishing, green thumb publishing. I mean, you might be surprised at how many people out there actually connect and resonate with your book. There's people out there for crafts. You can find a craft publishing company. You can find a wine. You can find a bakery publishing. People that like that niche stuff. And you'll be surprised at how many publishers are actually in your hometown. You were alluding to that a little bit earlier. Now a lot of people can publish through Amazon and some other different networks. So now they know how to do it, but they don't know how to necessarily how to write a book, but they know how to publish it. And that's their expertise. They know what to do, how to line it up, who to get it in. Lightning Source, they can get into Barnes and Noble, Joseph Beth. They can get it into the big bookstores or into your local library. So sometimes the smaller publishing companies, I think, actually work out more in your favor than the big ones. You have to have a representative, you have to have an agent, you have to sometimes cough up a ton of money for marketing. What are you going to do? I mean, I don't know that for sure. I've never landed, a big, huge Simon and Schuster or, Disney line book, but I'm sure that people will agree that, when you go with an independent publisher like Red Bike, you'll get your book. It's the same quality. It's like even Hemingway would be happy. They turned me into Hemingway. Thanks to you, Jeff. I sound great.
Thank you.
So it is funny. I mean, I read a lot of books. My wife reads a lot of books. She just read one last week and she found 9 misspelled words in that book. And that is a major, major publisher out of New York. 9 misspelled words.
Yeah, you're not going to avoid it.
You're not. And so if you're happy with the local guy or girl or local company, I say go with it. It's more niche. You feel more at home. They treat you well. You're not just a number. So I tell everybody, go for it.
That's a great point. And I honestly, I'm embarrassed I didn't even think about it. But if you have a niche book, what better than to go with a publisher who's experienced in your topic, because they're already marketing for that topic. Like you said, the gardener or the security publisher or the army publisher. Excellent points. And I appreciate you bringing that up. Sorry, phone's ringing.
That's
Can't
okay.
help that.
That's
All
okay.
right. Well, thanks for walking us through that. Have you experienced any added benefits from being a published author?
I have had paid speaking gigs. That is one of the biggest ones. Is they invited me out to give a speech at their company. I've been invited to libraries and give speeches to students about how to write. You've been on the news, but the biggest one was I wrote for my local newspaper, and that in itself is the equivalent of writing a book.
Right.
It really is. So in Carmel, Indiana, I wrote for the Current in Carmel for nearly 3.5 years as a contributor because I had a full-time job at the same time. So, but because I wrote a book, that opened up a window, that opened up a big door for me to write for the Current in Carmel. And I just sent them an email one day and said, I would love to write a couple articles for you, maybe 2 or 3 times a month on various topics from Halloween to Christmas lights to how to clean your driveway off with a power washer. I mean, I was all over the place, but she liked the idea. And so I did it. And it was really a lot of fun. And that opened up another door. And then that turned into another book. And then I decided to write a poem. I wrote a poem in one day for my daughter, and Success Magazine picked it right up.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm a published poet. They picked it up and my daughter couldn't believe it. But one thing climbs on the next ladder. I mean, every step you say, well, how's that going to get me higher and higher and higher? Sometimes you don't even know what's going to get you higher because you go backwards and someone said, hey, you wrote for your newspaper. Hey, I'll publish your book. Hey, I'll publish your poem. I'll take you more seriously. I know you're 100% invested in this because of you were a writer, and I will hire you and I will get you in the door. So with being an author for 4 books, pretty soon 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, 20, that it just keeps opening up more doors for me. Not necessarily financial, and that's not what everybody writes for. If they're writing to be rich, they're writing for the wrong reasons. Just write to write, get your story out, and everything else will take care of itself. Stephen King, I'm sure, got rejected a couple times. And his first, probably somebody laughed at him. But now you look at him, or James Patterson, it's the same thing. Everybody wants to be them, or Anne Rice. Well, they all had to start somewhere too. I mean, they really did. So you never know what's going to keep going. I mean, just because a book doesn't sell 1 million copies in a year doesn't mean you stop. So the next venue and the next road will create something else that you didn't even see happen. I've contacted old friends with books. It's funny how sometimes you'll hear from a friend, hey, I picked your book up. I couldn't believe it. That was me in the story you were talking about. And so it is fun. I think everybody should write. There's so many avenues now to write. The biggest thing is don't be afraid of fear. That's the biggest one that I hear all the time is I'm not going to be very good at it, or I'm scared, or what are people going to think, or, that's okay. And that's going to follow everybody forever, no matter what you do. And I say, go for it, write that book, get it done, and listen to Jeff's logic and his science. And there's a good book out there by Stephen King. There's many good books out there by the author Jim Denny out of California. He's written about 150 books. He wrote 4 books on how to write a book. And it's just like yours, how to write a book in a niche. It's the same thing. And it's very sound, good advice. Everybody just has to read it, follow it, and boom, you got it on paper. And once you get it on paper, you're one step closer to having the book published. So that's the best advice, is start today and get going.
Well, Jim, you're a very talented author. I love reading the books that you send to me. Very engaging. You're a great storyteller. Just wondering if podcasting was on your future as well. I think you would have no problem setting something up. So I look forward to seeing that in the future, possibly from you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But, being an author is one of the greatest accomplishments I've ever had. And I'm hooked, line, and I'm reeling them in. I love it. I think it's fun. You never stop thinking. It's people like yourself at Red Bike Publishing that keep it engaging and fun and exciting, and you're not afraid to try anything new. So that in itself pumps you up. I mean, it really gets you emotional. I mean, it's fun. And the other thing is read books. A lot of people say they only read 1 book a year. Well, another logic is read 15 minutes a day on something that you want to read. It doesn't have to be on my book or Jeff's book. Pick the topic that you want and watch and listen and clarify what they're reading and what you're putting together as a unit. And then you can start to write your own book based on that. And then over the time, you start to form your own rhythm and your own rhyme. So, yeah.
Again, Jim, I think you're a talented author and speaker, and hopefully you can come on as a guest again. But I would like to thank you and let the audience know if you have any questions. I'm going to put contact information for Jim in our show notes. But Jim, can you tell them how to contact you?
Sure. The easiest way is jimsurger.com or through Red Bike Publishing. That's the easiest way to go, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so I'll put a link to your books and
Yes,
your contact information on our show notes. Please support our show by just clicking on those. You don't have to give it to anybody or anything. Just take a look at what Jim has, and we would love to hear your notes and comments on the show. And please let somebody else know we're out here. Thank you. All right. And thanks for joining us today for our episode of Book-Based Business Incubator. If you want to contact us, contact me at editor@redbikepublishing.com. If you want to contact Jim, as he said, go to his website, jimsurger.com. Visit our show notes because I will have all that laid out very easily for you. And I hope you're looking forward to our upcoming book. It's called The Side Job Toolbox, and it talks about exactly everything we spoke on today. It will show you how to develop your book to highlight your business and how to properly market it, and let everybody know your book is out there in that defined niche that you are working in. And we also have training at bennettinstitute.com to help you write your book, market your book, or become an expert in your niche. So we hope you visit us there. Again, everything's going to be in the show notes. Until next time, have a great one.